Ananya was a radiant bride everyone admired, and Rohit was a successful husband every family respected. But when Rohit discovered Ananya's pregnancy wasn't his, their dream marriage turned into a nightmare that ended in brutal murder. The wedding of Ananya and Rohit was nothing short of a grand celebration. Friends, relatives, and neighbors filled the brightly decorated venue, showering the couple with blessings and admiration. The mandip glowed with golden lights. Flowers hung from every corner, and the sound of traditional music carried through the night air. Everyone saw the two as a perfect pair, a union of beauty and success. Rohit was praised as a hard-working software engineer, someone who built a strong career and secured a promising future. Ananya was admired for her grace, charm, and gentle nature, the kind of bride every family dreamed of welcoming. Smiles and laughter surrounded the couple, and photographs captured moments that looked like a fairy tale. For many, this was not just a wedding, but a union of two respected families, a symbol of happiness and prosperity. Behind her bright smile, however, Ananya carried a weight no one else could see. She played the role of the radiant bride with flawless precision, but deep inside, a storm brewed. While the guests danced and celebrated, she tried to push her secret further away, convincing herself that love, time, and a new beginning would erase the past she had left behind. Rohit's family welcomed her warmly, treating her with kindness and honor. She felt a mixture of relief and guilt as each ritual tied her closer to her new life. The sound of clinking bangles, the colors of her bridal dress, and the glow of the sacred fire masked the anxiety that silently gnawed at her. For that night, at least, no one saw the shadows behind her eyes. What appeared to everyone else as a perfect wedding was, for Ananya, the beginning of a dangerous double life that would soon unravel in ways she never imagined. Before she ever stepped into married life, Ananya had known love in a different form. Arjun had been her world for nearly 3 years, a relationship that grew quietly but intensely away from the watchful eyes of her family. He was her first love, the one she had trusted with her dreams and vulnerabilities. They met during her college years, and their bond had seemed unbreakable. But as is often the case in conservative families, choices were rarely her own. Her parents believed in arranged marriage, in securing stability and status rather than chasing emotions. When Rohit's proposal came, with his career and respectable family background, her parents insisted she accept. For Ananya, refusing was not an option. Arjun had begged her fight for them, but faced with mounting pressure, she chose silence over rebellion. By the time her wedding day was set, Ananya had already made another discovery. She was pregnant. The news had shaken her to the core. She had stood in her room holding the test in trembling hands, her heart pounding with panic. Arjun had not known, and she decided he never would. Fear clouded her every thought. She convinced herself she could hide it, that no one would suspect anything once she became Rohit's wife. In her mind, time would blur the truth, and the child could grow up as part of her new family. The weight of secrecy grew heavier with each passing day, but Ananya's resolve did not waver. She told herself it was better this way, better than breaking her family's trust, better than shattering the marriage before it even began. She buried the truth deep within her, unaware that the very secret she tried to protect would one day become the cause of her tragic downfall. At first, Ananya slipped into her new role as a wife with careful grace. She smiled at family gatherings, helped her mother-in-law with household duties, and presented herself as the perfect daughter-in-law. Rohit, proud of his new bride, often spoke of how lucky he was. Their life together seemed smooth, filled with shared meals, small moments of laughter, and gestures of affection. Yet beneath that surface, Ananya carried the silent weight of her hidden pregnancy. Each day she rehearsed excuses in her mind, telling herself she could conceal the changes in her body, at least until the truth blurred into acceptance. For a while, she succeeded. No one seemed to notice. But secrets, no matter how carefully guarded, have a way of slipping through cracks. Rohit began to notice subtle differences in Ananya's behavior. She grew anxious during conversations about family planning and became distant whenever he expressed excitement about their future children. Her unease made him suspicious, though he brushed it off at first as nervousness in a new marriage. Soon, small rumors began to circulate. A housemaid mentioned Ananya's frequent visits to a doctor. Neighbors, quick to observe and quicker to gossip, noted how soon she looked to be expecting after the wedding. The whispers reached Rohit, and though he tried to ignore them, doubt began to take root. The household atmosphere shifted. Rohit started watching Ananya more closely, his affection slowly giving way to suspicion. Each unexplained errand, each hushed phone call, felt like proof of something she was hiding. What once felt like a peaceful home began to fill with tension. Ananya sensed his growing mistrust, but felt powerless to explain, without exposing everything. The cracks in their marriage were no longer invisible. They were widening, and with each passing day, the secret she carried pushed them further apart. The day the truth surfaced was one Ananya had dreaded from the moment she walked into Rohit's home as his bride. For weeks, she had managed to deflect questions and master anxiety, but fate has a way of stripping away illusions. It began innocently enough. Rohit returned home earlier than expected one afternoon. As he entered the house, he heard Ananya's voice from behind a closed door, speaking in hushed tones. At first he thought little of it, but when he heard her name, Arjun, his entire body froze. The sound of that name struck him like a blow, unraveling the threads of trust that still held their fragile marriage together. He lingered in the hallway, listening to fragments of her conversation, and though he could not hear every word, the meaning was unmistakable. This was no casual call. This was a connection to a past she had promised to leave behind. Rohit confronted her immediately after. The weight of his suspicion transformed into fury, and for the first time, the massive calm he usually wore was gone. Ananya, cornered and terrified, could no longer hold her silence. The truth spilled out. The child she carried was not his. The moment those words left her lips, everything changed. For Rohit, it was not only betrayal but humiliation, a wound to his pride and the honor of his family. He saw her secret as a deliberate act of deceit, a stain that would never wash away. In the days that followed, Rohit's anger simmered dangerously. His once loving glances turned cold, his words sharp and cutting. What had started as a marriage filled with promise now felt like a trap of lies and betrayal. The discovery shattered not only their bond, but also the fragile hope Ananya had clung to, setting the stage for the violence that would soon consume them both. The night it happened, the air in the household was thick with tension. Days of silence, sharp looks, and unspoken rage had built up until it felt like the walls themselves were trembling. Neighbors later recalled hearing raised voices long after the rest of the street had grown quiet. Inside, Rohit's fury reached its breaking point. For him, the truth of Ananya's pregnancy was an unforgivable insult, a wound that burned every time he looked at her. His pride, once bolstered by the admiration of family and community, now felt torn apart by what he saw as betrayal. Ananya tried desperately to calm him, but fear made her words falter. She was trapped between defending herself and pleading for mercy. Rohit, however, was beyond reason. His anger erupted with brutal force. The arguments escalated into violence, echoing to the house in sounds that could not be mistaken. Thuds, crashes, and muffled cries for help. What had started as rage turned into a savage assault, each blow fueled by a sense of humiliation and loss of control. By the time the house fell silent, Ananya lay lifeless on the floor, her body marked by the brutality she had endured. The child she carried perished with her, the secret that had sparked the storm now extinguished forever. Rohit stood over her, his chest heaving, his hands trembling with the weight of what he had done. In that moment, there was no turning back. The bride who had once been the symbol of joy and new beginnings had become the victim of unchecked rage. When the sun rose the next morning, the household tried to weave a story of tragedy, claiming she had fallen or suffered a sudden illness. But the truth could not be hidden for long. The walls had carried her screams, and the neighbors had heard everything. When the police arrived, summoned by concerned neighbors who had heard the chaos that night, the scene told a story no family excuse could erase. Ananya's body showed clear signs of violence. Deep bruises, cuts, and marks that could never be mistaken for an accident. The carefully constructed lie about a sudden illness crumbled within hours of investigation. Officers sealed off the house, collected evidence, and questioned everyone present. What emerged painted a chilling picture of a young woman's final hours, silenced not by fate, but by the man she'd been forced to trust with her life. Rohit was taken into custody, though his influential family quickly began maneuvering behind the scenes. They used their wealth and connections to try to shield him, hiring expensive lawyers and pressuring witnesses to stay quiet. For weeks, it seemed as though justice might slip away, as if Ananya's story would be buried alongside her. Yet the case refused to fade. Neighbors testified about the screams they heard. Medical examiners presented undeniable proof of sustained assault. Journalists picked up the story, and soon it became a topic of national outrage. Women's rights groups marched in her name, demanding accountability, turning Ananya's tragedy into a symbol of the violence many endured in silence. The courtroom became a battleground. Rohit's defense argued desperation, shame, even provocation. But the prosecution built a narrative of cruelty and deliberate violence. Each piece of evidence drove the truth deeper into the public conscience. In the end, the judge's verdict was clear. Rohit was guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison, though justice was served on paper. It brought little comfort to those who had loved Ananya. Her story remained a haunting reminder of how secrets, pride, and unchecked anger could turn a marriage meant for happiness into a graveyard of broken dreams.